the humanity. You couldn't write this in a book, for they wouldn't believe you. No one suspends their disbelief to that extent. What are McLaren and Zak Brown doing, by the way? Genuinely, all the while over the past 2 to 3 weeks, they've been talking about the dangers of leaving the door open for Max Verstappen, yet this nonsense egalitarianism has done what? Opened the back door for Maximilian Verstappen, now 12 points behind Lando Norris going into the season finale, where we know anything can happen. This is absolutely ludicrous. I've never seen a sports team in the upper echelons of motorsport globally operate in this fashion. You don't need to go and reference Michael Schumacher, who told you if you're pulling in one direction, or if you've got a clear number one and clear number two, then that's the line of least resistance. These muggles, the papaya-coloured team, didn't box Lando because they're so keen to avoid accusations of favouritism. What are we doing? This makes no sense. Care? No hablo inglés. Zak Brown, please advise, sir. You weren't even joking, Zak Brown, when you gave that interview on Beyond the Grid, when you said you were so keen to avoid favouritism that you would rather lose the championship, because that's what you're about to do, chap. Lose yourself a championship of the drivers' variety. And by the way, it's Lando. Lando made mistakes today, didn't he? He wasn't perfect. Lando Norris 1.0 rocks up again. The starts were bad, mistakes, unforced errors of the unforced variety, left, right and centre. But yet and still, he's in the driver standings lead. He has it all in his hands. It's his to lose. Nerves are shattered. I can't watch this. Me and you both, Liam. It's going to get techier than techie things. But let me talk about Lando in the first instance. This wasn't. You don't have this conversation under the aegis of Lando Norris's mistakes. It was McLaren's chat. Yeah, Lando made mistakes. It was Lando Norris 1.0, aka Dustin from Stranger Things, that rocked up today. Max Verstappen stole his lunch money before we even got into the combined entry into turn one. It was gonzo, it was done, it was lost in the roundings. Max Verstappen was never going to have that, especially given the fact that Lando Norris had been bantering him. Max, coming into this Grand Prix, had said, you know what, if I'd had that MCL 3.9, this championship would have been over a long time ago. To which Lando Norris clapped back and said, you know what, all this nonsense that Max Verstappen and Red Bull talk, he doesn't know anything. Well, how about now, Lando Norris? Listen, mate, you said that you weren't going to get involved in all of this social media gubbins, and here you are out here enraging the lion that is Maximilian Verstappen. Is that even smart? Here's my counsel for Lando Norris. Come off social media, chap. Don't engage Maximilian Verstappen in anything. You don't want to enrage an already raging bull in Maximilian Verstappen, especially not when he's 12 points behind you now in the Drivers' Championship. You can't afford to, Lando. You will lose. This McLaren team now never fail to seize defeat from the jaws of victory. Can you imagine on lap 7? Lando was passing the pit wall, or the pit lane even, and had the opportunity. But again, Andrea Stella and Zak Brown are keen to deflect, so keen to deflect any accusations of favouritism that they didn't even split the strategies. No, if one has to get compromised, we both have to get compromised. What are we doing? How does this even make sense? How can a team like McLaren, coming from where they've come from, lest we forget, only 24 months ago, they were last on the grid in terms of speed and absolute performance. Coming from where they've come from, they're so keen to seize defeat from the jaws of victory. Make this make sense, Zak Brown, as you are about to. For season finale, we've seen it already. Stranger things have happened than a driver such as Max Verstappen closing a 12-point gap. And then you've got to talk about Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri dominant all race weekend. You know what I mean? Super quick, fast, back to OJP 81 proper. No longer can I leverage at him the criticism that who is this chap in car 81 and what has he done with Oscar Piastri? He did everything right, was as near as makes no difference, perfect. And then lap 7 comes and goes. And McLaren are the only two drivers who do not pit. It reminds me of Lewis Hamilton all those years back when he was the only one left on the grid to start by himself because everybody else pitted. Surely you've got to have a look at yourself in the accountability mirror, McLaren. This isn't good enough. This is poor form. This is not championship winning behaviour. Yeah, the constructors in the rear view, of course, but the drivers, that's the jewel in the crown, the only championship that anybody cares about. And you are about to, McLaren, seize defeat from the maws no jaws of victory. This is chaotic. It's Shakespearean level tragedy, this, from McLaren. Oscar Piastri post-race was like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Zach Brown and Andrea Stella are muggles, aren't they? They're so keen on this egalitarianism as advertised that they are willingly sacrificing victory in the drivers at the altar of this perceived papaya. Well, honestly, it is nonsense. And then we move to Maximilian Verstappen. Let me tell you this. You think you can leave that door open, Zach Brown, and Max Verstappen's not going to walk through? You told us this, chap. You said over the course of this race weekend that Max Verstappen's like the protagonist in the horror movie, that just when you think he's unalived, he comes back in the door like Psycho and Jack Nicklaus settings. That's what Maximilian Verstappen is. And you don't play with that because you will lose. Fellas, I'm telling you, we've said it a gazillion times and I will reiterate for the avoidance of doubt. This is important now, McLaren. If you mess around with this sort of stuff, if you bring a knife to a gunfight, a chap like Maximilian Verstappen will stamp his foot on your rhetorical necks without compunction. He is a killer of an F1 peddler. Of that, there is no doubt. And then you get Zach Brown up and down all season long. They've been doing all this dodginess. And we've said, haven't we? It's been the Magna Carta of the channel that you don't mess about in F1. You don't play about with it. Risk is always front row. And therefore, if you're going to race F1 cars, then you don't play about. Don't put your thumb on the competitive landscape weighing scales. Now, Zach Brown and Andrea Stella have been doing this all season long. You see who Andrea Stella is when he gives his interviews with the press and media and they put their mobile phones on the table, and Andrea Stella has to organise them. He has to indulge his OCD and make sure he lines them up like troops. That's what they've been doing, McLaren, with the championship in 2025. And you cannot micromanage circumstances in Formula One. There are always X factors. Andrea Stella, therefore, this is an exercise in futility, and you will lose if you mess around and play with your food. Lest we forget Monza. Again, Oscar Piastri was like, mate, this is motor racing. Max Verstappen was laughing at them then, and he's definitely laughing at them now. And you know what? Max Verstappen's comments are ringing in my ears because many people said that Max was on chaos, that he was talking too disparagingly about McLaren since they've done so well, built a god tier MCL 39 that's the quickest on the grid, etc. etc. That Max wants to put some respect on McLaren's name. Naysayers were saying that, but let me see them that and raise them this. Max Verstappen was bang on the money. Here's what Max said most notably, and the irony is not lost on me, going into the Qatar Grand Prix. Max Verstappen said this, that the reason why the champion's still alive isn't anything to do with me or Red Bull. It's all to do with McLaren and their god-tier level of ability to seize defeat from the jaws of victory almost ad nauseum in perpetuity now. They've made a career out of doing it in 2025. That's why Max Verstappen says, if you give me that McLaren, the MCL 39, then a championship would have been done, wrapped up, full stop, new paragraph, a long time ago. Maximilian Verstappen's words. And on the back of that performance day, who am I to argue? Of course, we have the victory conversation under the aegis of Hannah Schmidt and her god-tier strategic mind. Of course you pit them on lap 7. Of course. How would you not take advantage of a 10-second discounted pit stop? 15.5 seconds instead of 26. Why would you not? This makes no sense unless, of course, you're having the conversation about egalitarianism. This Zach Brown thing, I'm telling you, this is the anchor, the ball and chain that's going to get McLaren in trouble. You do not play these games, especially not when you've got a fire-breathing dragon in Maximilian Verstappen breathing down your neck. The